We will now hear from Dov Hikind, our New York Assemblyman, who was recently re-elected.
Thank you.
Put this on your suit.
Thank you. I have to tell you that I'm very, very happy to be here and to have the opportunity to share some thoughts with you which are long overdue. I remember, over the weekend, knowing that I was coming, I remember actually sitting with Binyamin on Ocean Parkway on a bench and talking when he was in the neighborhood. But what I want to share with you is that my life of being involved, of standing up for the Jewish people, of not being quiet, not being afraid, trying to do the right thing for the Jewish people, whether it is here in the United States, whether it involves the people of Israel, or where Jews are anywhere in the world. The person responsible for getting me involved, the person responsible for making me an activist, understanding that caring is very, very cheap if it's not followed up by action. Shedding tears, nebuch, terrible, horrible, when we see things going on that hurt us, our hearts. But if you don't do anything about it, if you don't act, if you don't try to make a difference, each person in their own way. The person responsible was Rabbi Meir Kahane of blessed memory. And I remember, just in terms of myself, I was going to Yeshiva Torah V'das, it was wonderful, but I had never heard of Soviet Jewry. I didn't know there was such a thing as 3 million Jews who were being annihilated spiritually, disappearing as Jews in the USSR. And I began to read and see headlines in America by the Jewish Defense League, by Jews doing things for their people, standing up, fighting. While others were criticizing them, they were the first ones. Rabbi Kahane was the first one to actually bring the plight of Soviet Jewries to the world public, to the entire world. The first person. And I remember the first time I got arrested for Soviet Jewry. The first time. And I remember Rabbi Kahane was very, very happy. It wasn't like in my family, the idea of getting arrested was not the kind of thing your parents were okay with. My parents went through the Holocaust. My mother was in Auschwitz in 1944 with her family. Her mother went straight to the gas chambers and other members of her family. And as much as she understood about standing up for Jews, her attitude was, let someone else do it. Not her son, because she was trying to be protective. And Rabbi Kahane was very, very happy that I got arrested. And I remember asking why. Why was he happy? And the reason was because he said that it was important for a Jew to realize that getting arrested for a Jewish cause is not the worst thing in the world. In fact, I began to realize up in Shemayim, which is really what counts at the end of the day, right? It's not what people think sometimes. It's really what God thinks. Fighting for your people, standing up, willing to go the extra mile, and even in those days getting arrested, chaining myself to the Soviet mission, and on and on and on. That's a whole long history. Rabbi Kahane really showed the way for so many people. It was such an exciting period, and of course his son, the same thing. But I'm here today because we miss the great leadership that existed. I don't know who the substitute is. I don't know who that person is that I can point to and say, that's a leader, not afraid to speak up, not afraid to stand up regardless of what anyone says. And that was Rabbi Kahane. If you read his books, and I have read all of them many times, it is remarkable when you live in 2016, or now it's 2017, and you see what's going on in the world. You see how much our enemies love us, and how peace-loving they are, and how much we can trust even those who live in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Kahane was so ahead of his time, it's unbelievable. In a sense, you might say, he was a prophet. If you read and study what Rabbi Kahane spoke about, he was decades and decades and decades ahead of his time. So for me, on a very personal level, all the sacrifice, all the blood that has been shed by the Jewish people in recent times, when you think of Binyamin and Talia, just as examples of, people driving on a road, something that we're all going to do, or we did coming here, or we're going to do when we leave. The idea that you could travel on a road and be machine gunned to death by someone, and by the way, those who are doing it, men, women, they don't care if there are children in the car. They don't care who it is. It is all about killing a Jew. It is about the kind of hatred that you and I cannot even imagine. We as Jews cannot imagine such hatred towards other people that exists in the world today. We watch it not only directed against Jews, but directed against other people as well. What people are capable of doing, we cannot fathom. We cannot explain it to our children or grandchildren, to explain to them how people can behave in such a fashion. So I'm here on a very personal, I was looking forward to being here. I remember Binyamin, Rabbi Kahane, of course. It was years and years that I spent being involved in JDL. And after 34 years, I literally started yesterday. I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything that I've done is all related to Rabbi Kahane. Getting involved even in politics in the very, very beginning. It was the last thing in my family. It was something that when Shani and I got married 41 years ago, politics, running for office, wasn't even a dream. We were just not interested. And I remember the first time that I ran, I looked at it, or someone convinced me, they said to me, you know what? You'll be able to continue to do a lot of the good stuff as an elected official. You'll be able to stand up and fight and speak out and so on. And thank God, over the last 34 years, starting my 35th year, it's hard to even, wow. Thank you. That I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I give credit where credit is due to Rabbi Kahane, to the Kahane family. They set the tone for me, and as an elected official, I'm proud of that. I don't run away from that. I say it publicly here. I say it publicly. I think in the Red Book for the state of New York, it's very clear there what my background is. Those were the best days of my life. The best days of my life, fighting for the Jewish people, Soviet Jewry, anti-Semitism, Syrian Jewry. I remember how many times we were outside the Syrian mission fighting for Eretz Yisrael, and so on and so forth. And you know what the wonderful thing about it was that is so different? There's nothing like it today. There's nothing like it. You can pick up any Anglo-Jewish newspaper. nobody's going to ask you to come to anything because there's nothing really to go to in terms of the Jewish people, in terms of rallies or demonstrations or things to do. There's nothing really going on. But the remarkable thing about those days with JDL and Rabbi Kahane, when you finished the demonstration, when you were up all night, I remember being involved in the takeover of the Park East Synagogue the night before. Some people are smiling, but it was we literally took over the synagogue and went on the ledge. Can you imagine? I got to tell my grandchildren about this. We literally took over, and the police came, and they were going to arrest us. We were on the ledge opposite the Soviet mission. And the next day, on Sunday, there was a huge demonstration. It was all Soviet Jewry fighting. But the remarkable thing was that when you finished, you didn't go home and come back a year later, like the annual thing for Soviet Jewry that the establishment had, which was very good. But, once a year, you went out. You were finished on Monday, you were planning Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, because when a fellow Jew is in pain, right? When a fellow Jew is in pain, you're supposed to feel as if it's your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. And would you rest? You would continue to fight, continue to stand up constantly. And that's what we did in those days. So it was, thank you. I mean, nothing to, like I said, those were the great days. And like I said, all the Jewish blood that was shed for the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael and all over the world. I just came back from Israel on Thursday morning. And Rabbi Kahane understood all of this so well. He was so amazing. Just want to share this last thought with you. The newspapers have been filled in the past week, CNN, you name it, every station, every network, about Amona, a place in Eretz Yisrael, on a hilltop, okay? Now, if you have not been there, if you have not seen it with your eyes, what the whole world is concerned about, like nothing else, people being murdered in Aleppo, people being murdered, I think there are up to 500,000 people having been killed in Syria, and no one gives a darn. No one cares. Everything going on in the world, people murdering each other, innocent men, women, and children. The world is only concerned about Eretz Yisrael. There's something wrong with that. This little country that is surrounded by enemies far and wide who want to destroy her. This is the only thing the Obama administration cares. This is their concern in the final hours. Bottom of the ninth inning. They have nothing else on their minds but to undermine the people of Israel. And this place called Amona, which the world wanted Israel, the people who live in these communities, to leave because some of it is Arab land. You would think it's Great Neck. You would think it's some of the houses in this neighborhood, these magnificent houses, like, oh my God, this is Arab land. You got to give it up, you got to give it back, and so on and so forth. I've been to Amona before, the last time it was destroyed, and we were there, Shani and I, just a few days ago, and you can actually see the video on Arutz Sheva that we did the day that we were there. I mean, you're talking about a hilltop with caravans. You're talking about a hilltop. There's no supermarket. There's nothing there except the most amazing Jews that God has created. Yeah. The most amazing Jews. We met them, spoke to them, filled with Torah, filled with love of Eretz Yisrael, filled with love of the Jewish people. This is what the whole world is concerned about. A hilltop, empty, desolate, nothing there. They were just telling me that last week on this hilltop right here, CNN, every single station in the world, every newspaper in the world, they were all here. And I'm saying, for what? For what? The world is the way it is. We, the Jewish people, will always have challenges until Mashiach comes. I just want you to know. But you know what? The test is how we behave with those challenges. What difference do we try to make, each and every one of us? My wife, for the past 25 years is involved with Jerusalem Reclamation Project, making sure that Jews can live in every part of Jerusalem. I mean the Muslim quarter, all these different areas. What have you done to make sure Jews can live everywhere in Jerusalem? I know you feel that way. Every politician who comes to a synagogue will talk about the unity of Jerusalem, and everybody is going to applaud. But what are we doing? Remember I said before, you got to do something. Hashem is keeping track. Very, very important. So Rabbi Kahane up there in Shemayim, and I can just imagine what a pain in the neck he's, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fighting for the Jewish people, and Binyamin, and Talia, and every single Jew who has given their life, who has been Moser Nefesh, whose blood has been spilled for all of us. Not for them, for all of us, so that we can have an Eretz Yisrael. I thank Rabbi Kahane for having made such a difference in my life, for having set the standard, for teaching me, one of the main principles of JDL, Ahavas Yisrael. Easy thing to say. And by the way, Ahavas Yisrael is liking people you don't like. How do you like that one? People you like, it's not a big deal to love them, right? If you like them, you love them. But when someone is not exactly the way, and you love them anyway, and you're kind, and you're generous, and you're giving, that's Ahavas Yisrael. So we got to be there for each other. Learn what Rabbi Kahane, what the Kahane family stands for, stood for. Not just the memorial, not just, we go home and it was very nice. But for every single Jew, Rabbi Kahane used to say, it is not incumbent upon us to save the world. I remember when we were involved in Soviet Jewry, people would say to us, you're going to make a difference? A bunch of JDL guys in the streets doing whatever we were doing, you think you're going to make a difference with the most powerful country in the world, the USSR? You're going to influence them? The fact is we did. But the real lesson Rabbi Kahane spoke about, it is not incumbent upon us to solve the problems of the world. It is incumbent upon us, each and every one of us, to do whatever we can to make a difference in this world. That's the only test you have. That is the only requirement. God bless each and every one and the Jewish people. Thank you. Sure, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Of
Really
course,
appreciate
of course. Oh, you want it back? I didn't keep it?
Thank you, Dov Hikind, for being with us today and sharing your personal thoughts and stories.